Yeah, good morning, everyone. So, yesterday we started discussing about arrays. So, in JavaScript, what are the arrays we learned? Yesterday we discussed what is the purpose of array, and we learned about how to configure array. These two things we learned. So, yesterday we discussed about the purpose. The purpose of array is to reduce overhead and complexity. How arrays reduce overhead? By storing values in a sequential order. How they will reduce complexity? By storing multiple values under one name. The main purpose of array is that. And in JavaScript, array have the behavior like it can store different types of values. Array can store different types of values in JavaScript. And array size can change dynamically, right? How to configure array? Yesterday we learned 2 points. So array can be configured in 2 ways. So what are the 2 different techniques is we have initializing the memory or assigning memory. We have meta character and we have a constructor. So what is difference between these two? Let's see. So that means here question is what is difference between? So array meta character and array method. This is a constructor. This is one important point. Because we can declare arrays in that way, assign values like this, where products is an array and this is array, or you can find like products is equal to new array, right? You are learning some computer programming now. By seeing this, you tell difference. What might the difference? So one is using meta character. Another one is using array constructor. And in that array constructor, observe it is using new keyword. Actually, that is a new operator we call it. In JavaScript, we call it as a new operator. Operator is, it is a dynamic memory allocation operator. Program is dynamic allocation operator. Can you tell what is problem in this? What happens if you declare a value using the keyword new? What happens to that object when you use the keyword new? Memory is allocated. Above also memory allocated. So new keyword uses dynamic memory. New means dynamic memory allocation operator. Dynamic memory means every time is memory newly allocated. What is good and what is bad is every time memory newly allocated means once you initialize the memory and you want to use from various places, then better to use the first one, meta character, because meta character is static memory. Static memory means memory once allocated, the same memory can be used across any number of times. But dynamic memory means memory is newly allocated every time. That means it will memory. Whenever again I want to use that array, it will clean up the previous memory and it will load the new memory. So if you want a collection to reset every time before you use, then you should use this new array. If you want an array with a continuous operations means allocate memory and it should continue. So until you end, until you dispose, then better you go with the meta character. So generally sometimes on internet or somewhere you will see people say that in array constructor we can mention size 2, 3 size we can mention, but size we can change dynamically. Yesterday I showed you, even you mentioned the size, it can change. So that is not the difference. That difference is not, because some people tell that as a difference. They say that in first we cannot mention size, in second we can mention size. That is not the point. The point is how memory is allocated for an array. First one is static memory, second one is dynamic memory. That is very important. So what is the meaning of this? So this meta character so configures, so it configures a static memory. It configures a static memory. So that means the memory allocated for first reference will continue across multiple requests. Will continue across multiple requests. So second one is array constructor. This is actually, it configures a dynamic memory which is newly allocated every time, every time when requested. It is newly allocated every time when requested. So depending on the requirement, you use a meta character or a construct. Okay, this is declaring array. Now the next point is how to store data into array. How we can store data in array. How we can access the data from array. First, creating array. It includes two stages: declare and assign memory. After that, how we can store data. So storing values into array. Storing values into array. Here again, one interesting concept is there, which generally you may think it is a concept, but actually it is another concept. So that means you may think in one way, it is actually a different. So generally, what people know about array and what actually it is, one more difference is there. For example, we are creating, so var values is an array. In that we have 10, 20, 30, some initializer. You can initialize the values or you can assign the values. You can do in this way or you can do in this way, where values is equal to array. After that, values of references you can do. First, I will tell you here. Actually, when you declare an array, generally what happens is, for this array, a memory is allocated. For this array, a memory is allocated. And in this memory, three divisions are defined. In this memory, three divisions are defined. Usually, memory divisions have index numbers. Like it is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. Like index numbers are present. But important is, for the same memory, there will be a property name 0, 1, and 2. Like this, for the same memory, a property name is present. Actually, these are index and these are property. That is the property. Now, what the difference is, actually, property is mapping to index. And the index is what type? Number type. And its reference is string type. That means its reference is the string type. String type is 0, 1. Same name will be there. Same name will be there. What many people think about array is, they think that we store data in array, we read data from array using index number. That's wrong. We actually read data from array, store data into array, not with index, with its property. And that property is a string type. It's not a number. It's a string type. Index is a number. But property name looks same as index name. That's the reason people they are using index, but actually it is a property to the same name index number. Index number. Let's prove this point. Means we will prove this point that arrays values are stored not with reference of index. They are stored with reference of property. Let's prove that point. See. Here I am declaring array. Let's put some values. Where values is equal to array 10, 20, 30 like this. Or say different values. True and A like this we are storing. We can have different type values. I will write a small program logic. Later I will explain that, right? I will write a small programming logic to read all the properties and values. That means you see, so for where, so property in values. I am printing here document.write. I am printing the property and I am printing the values of property. You see, actually, in the next line, just observe. Later I will explain this loop, what it is. Here I am writing a small logic to read the properties and values. Actually, to read these properties and values 0, 1, 2, 3. Usually by seeing this, what people think, 0 is index number, 1 is index number, and 2 is index number. Let's do one thing. Beside it, I will use a simple expression type of property. That means it returns what is its data type. That means properties data type. Properties data type means that 0, 1, 2, its data type. 0, 1, 2, if it is index number, it should be number type, but it is string type. they are not numbers. They are strings which are with the same name as index numbers. And let's read the value type. That means here I will put another option, and here I will put another option. Yeah, here I will write here simply, this is rough one, later you will understand. Type of values of property, that means value type. Value types are different: number, boolean, string. But 0, 1, 2 are not index numbers. 0, 1, 2 are not index numbers. 0, 1, 2 are properties. So arrays are controlled by properties. That means we store data into array, we read data from array using properties, and it is no problem if you think as index. No problem, because property name maps to the index name. But technically it is not index. Technically it is not index. These are properties. That's the reason you might have tried that in your technologies. It means I am universally discussing about the concept of array. You see here, I will go here, and here I will write values of 0. I will replace with 20. That means the first value is replaced with 20. Right after that, so values of 1, I am writing like a string. You might have never tried that. Am I right? Right? But your technology may not allow that. Sometimes your technologies say that, please don't use strings here. We have some problems with strings. Please use only numbers. But JavaScript, see now, here I will put as false. That means I will change it. And you can see that it is working fine. But I am not writing like a number. I am writing like a string. Actually, it is a string. And even you don't write it like a string, it is taken as a string. Its type is string default. Right? So in JavaScript array, how we can store values, how we can read the values. So the values are stored. The values are stored with reference of a property. So values are stored with reference of a property. Values are stored with reference of a property. And property is a string that maps to, property is a string that maps to index number of memory. Property is a string that maps to index number of memory. So usually, so property is an index. The property is like 0 and index is 0. You can write like this, like 0. And you can write like this, like 0. That's the index according to that. Property is a string that maps to the index number of memory. So what we do is, so we declare var values is an array. So values of 0, into that we will assign some, and values of 1, we assign some values of 2, some we assign string. So here the point is, so all are valid. Anything you can do. You can write like a number, or we can write like a string. We can do. Right? Anything we can configure into any way you can configure the properties and values. So that is the first point. So the values are stored with reference of property. So next point you need to understand, another point is what kind of value we can store in an array. What kind of value we can store? Array is allocating memory. If anybody asks in memory what I can store, anything you can store. You can store anything inside it. That means, so you can store any type of value. Any type of value in array. In array memory reference. You can store any type of value in array memory reference. So that means it can be primitive type. It can be non-primitive type. So it can be function. You can even store a function also. An array can handle anything inside it. Primitive type means number, string, boolean, null, undefined, and all this. Even null, undefined also can be stored. And non-primitive type means arrays, objects, maps. Currently we know only array. Later we will learn about other types. We can store anything in array, even a function also. For example, see now. You can store any type of value. First, I will copy this. This is just roughly to prove that the values are what type, properties are string type, and values are different types, right? So later you will learn the program, how to write that program, you will understand now. So now let's go here and let's create something like this now. So what is the point? What kind of value we can store in an array? So where values is equal to, that is the memory allocated. We have number, we have string, some TV. So we have boolean, boolean true or false. These are primitive types. And we have an array. We have an array. Array is having again some values, Delhi and Hyderabad, like this. That is an array of strings we are having. And it can have a function also inside. This function can have some functionality. Document.write hello from array. That is what the values. You can store anything in array. Currently I am initializing. You can assign, you can initialize. Anything you can store in array. It can be primitive, non-primitive. In that array, again array, your wish. Now only the point is, how do we access these values? Access the values, that means you can store any kind of value. That means syntax, where values is equal to array, values of 0. I'm not writing like a string every time, but it is a string. So here in 0, we have 1. In values of 1, we have some TV, that is string. Values of 2, it is having some true. Values of 3, so it is having some again array. So Delhi, so Hyderabad, like this. So values of 4, in that I can store some function. This function can have some functionality like document.write. So hello from array. Like this, you can add so many things into array. Any kind of data you can store in array. There is no question at all. Like sometimes people come and ask like, can I store null undefined? Why can't you store? It is memory. In memory, you can store anything, right? You can store any kind of value. Now the point is, how do we access them? So now how you can access? That means, so you can access array elements. Array elements means array values by using the reference of property. By using the reference of property, the same property that you used for storing, you can use, which generally people call as index number, right? That means with the same property reference, what you use to store, you can use to access. So that means what you can do, document.write, I am using values of 2. What it is going to return? It is going to return true, because in the above concept we stored in 2 reference, it is true. For example, I am writing document.write values of suppose 1. I written like a string type. That's also okay. It will return what? TV. You can write like a number or you can write like a string. Both are okay. It will work. So now one simple point here. Now tell me how to print this Hyderabad city. How to print that Hyderabad? Document.write. Tell me how to print that. So at 0 it is having number. At 1 it is having string. At 2 it is having true boolean. At 3 it is having array. So values of 3. Values of 3. That is memory. In that memory, what we have? In that memory, what we are having? Array. In that memory, again array is present. Na? Remember, this is up to this is only memory. You are referring to that 3 memory. Understood? In 3 memory, what is present? Array. That means again square brace. Right? In 3 memory, 3 is memory. Up to 3 memory comes. In that memory, what is there? In that memory, if number is there, directly will come. String is there, directly will come. But if it is an array, then again you have to use a square brace. And what is the index number or property of Hyderabad? 1. That is how we access. That means now you see it is going to access and display that. That is the way how you access the array. Now I will put a BR. Okay. Now tell me how to execute that function. That is a function. We don't print the functions. We have to call the functions. Function is not printed. We don't use document.write because function have to execute. Na? Function have to run. That means we have to call the function. How you will call that function? Values. We are using values. Values of at which location? 4. At 4, what is present? Function. Is it having any name? Function is not having a name. Then it is called anonymous function. If functions are defined without a name in memory, then those functions are called anonymous. Anonymous means functions don't have name. Then how you will access? If function don't have a name, then how you will access? If you are having a function without a name, then generally to access this function, we use a mechanism called, we use a software design pattern called IIFE. We use a pattern called IIFE. Immediately invoked function expression. Immediately invoked function expression. I will show you one small technique here. See, first I will show you that, then you can understand this. Let me cut this temporarily. I will write a function without name. Document.write, I will say welcome. And this function is completely invalid. It will not work because it is not having a name. If function is not having a name, you can enclose that function. This entire function can be enclosed in a parenthesis. It can be enclosed in a parenthesis like this. If a function is not having any name, it is enclosed in a parenthesis. Right? That means now it is okay. Then how you call this function? You have to call the function immediately after the function finish. Immediately invoke the function's expression, and function expression is a empty parenthesis. That is empty parenthesis. This is called IIFE pattern. It is present everywhere. It is present in every technology. It is not just this here. Suppose you know in your Java or .NET, so Java or C#, some programming languages. Suppose we have a class called employee, am I right? You create an object for that employee, am I right? You will create an object. Suppose employee, you are creating employee emp is equal to new what? Employee and a parenthesis, am I right? This is that employee a function or a class? Class. Why you are using a parenthesis? You are invoking a function inside the class, which is a constructor. Am I right? That means immediately you are invoking a constructor after the class. Generally, do you know what people tell you? That constructor will automatically execute. Am I right? Right? It will not automatically execute. You are calling. If you don't give this, that means if you don't give this, will it work? Then you are calling. You are calling the constructor function. And you are saying that automatically it will execute. Right? Automatically it will not execute. You are calling it. Right? You are calling the constructor. But you assume that it is automatically executed. For example, you see people say multitasking. You know multitasking? Multitasking means what? Simultaneously at the same time, more than one work can be done. It's impossible. You can't do. There is no multitasking in computer technologies. The division of fraction of seconds is so fast that it looks like multitasking. Actually, it is one after another. Understood? Huh? There is no multitasking at all. There is no multitasking at all. That means you see movie na? There is no motion pictures at all. There is no movie. Do you know how movie is prepared? By using frames, you know? You know, videos when you shoot videos, you move camera from left to right. Do you know left to right? So when you move your camera, it will record 30 frames per second. 30 frames per second. If you want high quality, you will put 60 frames per second, 30 FPS, 60 FPS. Do you know? That means 30 frames per second, 50 frames per second. Means in 1 second, 30 frames will run, then you will feel like it is moving. But actually it is not moving. They are still photos. In one photo, object is in one place, in another photo, it is in another place, in another photo, in another place. And when you move these three fast, it looks like it is moving. Right? So many assumptions are like that in our software technology. We think that this is happening, but actually in the background, something else is there. And we just tell the learners the same thing because we don't want to confuse them. Right? We don't want to confuse them by telling all these architectural things and all. They will run away from the technology. Next day, nobody will come. If you tell all this to anybody in Java, .NET and all these technologies, then they will run away. They don't come. That means these days what you have to do, you have to teach only what they want to learn. Understood? You cannot teach what you know. You have to teach only what they want to learn. That means tomorrow which topic? This topic. Acha, I don't want this. I will stay at home. Right? That means that is your mindset. In that case, even trainer also will take liberty. That means he says that it's waste of time to tell all these things. Then we will just tell him what he needs to know. Just basic is enough. Right? That is the reason architecturally concepts are little different than what you assume. Right? That means you say that constructor calls automatically. How it will call automatically? There must be somebody calling it. You are actually calling it. That is through a design pattern called IIFE. Immediately invoke the constructor after the class name. Understood? So you are invoking the constructor after the class name. Same thing here also we are doing, invoking that function. That means now how to access our concept now. You see this is working fine. You will see that it is going to work. It is going to print that. That means now see our array concept now. In this array, tell me at 4, it is a function and it is not having a name. Then how do we access? Empty parenthesis. Immediately invoke. And why you are using empty parenthesis? Because we know that in that memory there is a function. In that memory there is a function. So it is going to execute and display. In the first line, it will display that Hyderabad. In the second line, it is going to execute the function. Right? That is how you can store data and you can access. You can store anything in array and you can access anything. So just you need to know the correct references, right? Correct reference. How do we access the function now? We have to use what? Values. Suppose another one. What is it? Document.write. What it is? Values of 3. In that 3 location, what is present? Array. In that 1, that means it is going to return. It is going to return Hyderabad. That's how it works. And we say document.write. Not document.write because we want to execute a function. Then values of what? 4. Values of 4 and a parenthesis. This is nothing but it will print hello from array. It will print that functionality. And this is called as, that means in the square brace 4 and a parenthesis, this is called as IIFE. Immediately invoking function expression. So here function without name is known as anonymous. Is known as anonymous function. Is known as anonymous function. Right? So that is the concept. So you can have anything in a memory. immediately invoking function expression IIFE. These are general technical terms asked in interviews. Usually they ask, do you have any idea on IIFE pattern? You generally, if we ask like this, then people think IIFE pattern is something very complicated thing, but it is actually daily usage concept. Daily use, we will use IIFE, right? But only the concept, many people are not aware of technical name, right? And anonymous function means function without names, right? Why you need function without name also, we will see that. We will discuss those points also in the next level, because we will learn all that in a concept called functions. Now, how do we store the data and access? I will give this example. Let me copy this complete example. This is just an example to understand how to store and how to access, right? And it can be anything. See, I'm just giving one example. Later you can try others. Like suppose var values is equal to array. In that array, in that again array, so 10, 20, 30, and here we are having another array. That means 40, 50 and 60. Like this we are configuring, and we have another array. So in this again array, suppose A and B, and we are having another array, suppose C and D, like this. Now tell me how to access the value C. Document.write, how you access the value of C. Values of, you see here, this is an array. Am I right? That is an array, na? That is one array. In that array, two arrays are present. This is one array. That is again one array. Am I right? This is another array. That means in the main array, how many indexes are present? Two indexes are present, right? At 0, again array is present. At 1, again array. This is 0, this is 1. Am I right? Right. So how do we access that? We have to use 1, values of 1. It is an array. Am I right? In that array, again array is present. So that means we have to use what? 1 here. Are you sure? At remember, in this array, that is array, na? In this array, at 0, this is present. Am I right? At 1, this is present. So here we have to use what? 1. In that 1, again array is present. Am I right? 0. That is how we need to access. That means it is going to access the value C. How we can access a multi-dimensions here. This is a basic of configuring and storing values. Any level you can store, you can access from any level. Just you need to know the correct hierarchy of that, right? So this is storing values and reading the values. What kind of values we can store? Now, next important, to handle interaction with arrays. So we have, so array related some properties and methods. Array properties and methods are present. Same like string properties and methods, we have array properties and methods. These array properties and methods are used for manipulating the arrays, just like string manipulation. So like index of, last index of, character, at character code, at length. Here also have so many properties and methods. The first important, so here is finding the length of array. Finding the length of array. So finding the length of array, that is nothing but, so which is total count of elements in array. total count of elements in array. That for that we have a simple option like where values is equal to 10, 20, 30. And you know how do we find values dot which property? Length. Same just like string. That means how many elements are present in that array, it will return. That means it will return the result 3. Same like string length, we also have an array length. So how many elements are present in an array we can define. Right. Next important here is we have another important is reading values from array. Reading values from array. That is nothing but how we can read the values stored in an array. Actually, to read values from an array, there are so many methods. We have toString. We have join. We have slice. So we are having the methods like map, for each. So to read the values from an array, we have these options. So we have find, we have filter, we have reduce. These are all used for reading values from array. So there are so many methods for reading values from an array. And what are these methods? How these methods work? Let's see one option here. Suppose I am creating, so where categories is an array. As per tradition, whenever you giving a name for collection of values, use a plural word. We have to use the plural word. Products, categories, values. Singular is used for a single value, right? That's a traditional approach actually. So we have like all, we have like electronics. So we have like footwear. Like this, we are having some options. I want to read these values from an array. So there are so many techniques. Document.write. I can simply use categories dot toString. ToString is nothing but it reads all the elements from array and converts into a string separated with commas. That means it is going to read all elements from an array, converts all the elements into a string separated with comma. And that means you can see that you can simply print all the elements with comma. Generally, you use for loops and all these for reading. But here we have more simple techniques so for reading the elements from an array. There is another option. That means this is toString. Instead of toString, we can use another option. Instead of toString, we can use join. Join, which uses a separator. We can put our own separator here. Means it is same like toString, but uses a custom delimiter, custom separator. That means you can see it is going to show a separator. That means it will return in the form of string and separated with commas. It is separated with a custom delimiter. Custom delimiter means your own separator. It is going to display that. We have slice already. We learned this. So in string we have learned slice. Slice is nothing but it reads from specific index. So we have to use what? Slice. And from which index? 1, 2. That indicates it will read only the first one. 1 to 2 means 2 is not included. Up to 2. up to 2. That means it is going to read only one and display. At one, it is electronics, it will read and it will display. So this is another option. Like, so we have categories that slice. So we have three basic options. One is string. That means it reads all elements and converts into a string. Separated with comma. Join, it is similar to string but uses slice, it reads elements between specific index. It reads elements between specified index. We have toString, we have join, and we have slice. Right. Another one is map. It is an iterator that returns all elements. It is an iterator that returns all elements using a specific presentation. So it is an iterator that returns all elements using a specific presentation. Especially for JavaScript, we use it. So in the modern JavaScript, majority working with arrays, we use this map. Map is the most commonly used concept for arrays in JavaScript especially. We don't write for loops like your Java and C, C++. We don't write for loops for arrays. We use the iterators. Iterators are more faster than loops. Iterators are more faster than loops. So generally, what is difference between a loop and an iterator? You will learn in statements concept, I will explain. You know, loop means for, while, do while, right? And generally, if you are writing a loop, you are writing a for. Usually a loop contains initialization, it contains a condition, and it contains an counter. Counter is nothing but iterator, right? Now important is, without initialization, condition, and counter, a iterator can read. That's good. That means iterators are more faster. You don't need a condition, you don't need a initialization, and you don't need a counter. Then internally, they start reading and they stop reading. That is the advantage of iterators. That's the reason in modern programming, we never use for loops and all in JavaScript. We use them only when we want some index-based access, right? We always prefer using map. That is very commonly used thing. You see now here how it is going to work. That means I showed you slice. Now what is the concept of map is, suppose I want to print every element as a heading. I want to print every element as a heading, or every element as a list item, unordered list item. I want to print everyone like a list item, roughly simply see here categories. Categories is a collection. You can apply a map. Map uses a function inside. It uses a callback function. This function will read every category. That means first time it will read this category. Second time it will read this. Third time it will read this. And if it is reading, just your work is print it. Document.write. I will print a list item. And in that, I will put a binding expression, VLAN binding expression. We will print the category name. Category name, category name. That means the category which it is collecting. That means what map function is doing? It is reading every item from this category and storing here. And that we are printing here. And is there a initializer? No. Is there a condition where to stop? No. Is there a counter iterator to say no, go next, previous? No. Internally, it knows where to start. It knows when to stop. It knows how to proceed. That is the concept of iterators. They are very faster when compared to the loops. That means you see now it is going to present all the content in this way. That means we are reading the elements in present. Presenting is a big concept. Next levels, you will see so many. Right? Initially, this is the point. That is the concept of what? Map. Actually, for each also same. Same like map for each also. In general, your languages, Java, .NET, everywhere, for each is a statement. But here it is a array method, not statement. You don't have for each statement here. So you have for statement, while statement, do while. But you don't have a for each statement. For each is a method here. It is a method of array. And what is specialty is it is same like map. It is also an iterator. It is also an iterator. That is actual difference is you have for each in your Java, right? If anybody asks what is difference between for and for each. For is a loop and for each is a iterator. In iterator, do you give conditions? No. You don't give initializers, conditions, right? You don't give counters. They automatically execute because they are inbuilt designed like that. Right. So here you see now what is for each is same like map, but for each can return the value and it can return the index number. It can return the value and index number. Actually, this is what index. It return the index number. For example, here I am printing the index. That index value I am printing. That means we are going to print the index number 0, 1, 2. So map and for each are used for, these two are iterators. Why you need index number? To delete any item, to add any item in between, you need index numbers. Right? If you are dealing with randomly adding any element into it, deleting any element into it, then you need index numbers. For that, for each will be a better option. So you can access and you can configure by using for each. So it is similar. It is similar to map, but can return index of iterating element. Index of every element. Index of every element in iteration. Examples I will give. We will see the examples. So that is the option. Find filter also I will give here. It returns only the first occurrence element that matches given condition. So filter, it returns all elements that match the given condition. So find and filter are similar, but find is going to return only the first occurrence and filter is going to return all occurrences that match the condition. I'll show. And reduce, it performs specific operation on values returned by iterator. For this, you have to learn other concepts. Later you will learn. That means you need to learn function, return types and all, then you can handle it. Right. So we will see those in a different point. We will see that here. As of now, the concept is reduce. We will see later. Let's see the syntax here. What is the basic syntax for this? One is collection dot toString. So that means it is going to separate A, comma, B, comma, C like that. We have collection dot join. Join is using some separator like this. That means it is going to return A, B, and C like this. We have collection dot slice 1, 2. It is going to return B. We have collection dot map. Map uses a callback function. That is the syntax actually. This returns every value. Inside the collection, whatever value is there. And we have collection for each. It also uses a function, value and index. This is for each. How you use the map and for each. Find filter also similar. But generally, find filter are written like this. Collection dot find. It uses a callback function. It reads every value. After reading the value, it will return if value is matching with a condition. Condition for value. That means which value you want to return. Do you want to return all or any specific condition values? That means now what this find is going to do, it is going to return only the value that matches this condition. You mention a condition, it will return only that value that matches the condition. Will it return all values that matches the condition? No. It will return only first occurrence. First occurrence. See, temporarily I will copy this code here later for you for later use it is actually. And see here now we are using finder. This is for each I am using. Let's say var sales. Sales is an array. some 45,000, 42,000, 67,000, and 68,000, and some 23,000. I want the sales, I want to just return the sales above 60,000. Then sales, so we have to use the collection sales dot find. Find uses a callback function. This function will read every value and return only if value is greater than how much? 60,000. Only 60,000. That is the condition. That means now what this find function is going to do? The find function is going to return only the value that matches that condition. And remember, find is going to return only the first occurrence. That means which one it will return? 67,000. Okay, that returned value we will print. That means what is result of this? The result of this is a value. That value we will print as toString. We will print as toString. Right? We are printing as toString. Actually, not required. We will put simply here for your understanding sake var result. That means that result contains that value. That means print that document dot write what you are printing result. And you will see that in the result there is only one value that matches. Right? Now if I use instead of find, just change this to filter. Instead of find, change it to filter. Then automatically it is going to return all values that matches the condition. That means whatever values are matching that condition, it will return that. So that is the concept of find. And another option is what? Filter. Filter is also same. It will read the value and it will return the value that matches the condition. Condition for value. Those are the points. So filter and the conditions. So how do we configure the values and use the values for reading? This is all the methods used for reading. You can use actually, this is filters. Another option is there. I will copy this example. Another option is there, but reduce. For that you need to learn some other concepts, then you can understand. In next level, I will tell you. Because for that you need to learn about some operators and all, then you can implement that. For example, sometimes in questions they ask like, find the sum of all these values in array. That means they will ask like, find the sum of all of this. Generally, you write some program for that. You don't need to write, you have a ready-made method for it. That means you don't need to write some for loop. You know how to find the sum of given values. Right? You usually write a for loop. You use a reference to store the values. But here ready-made methods are present. And for that, if you know operators, you can easily manage them, right? That you will see in the next level. How do we do that, right? But these are all what? These are all the methods used for reading elements from an array. So we have toString, join, slice, map, for each, find, filter, and reduce. These are internal methods. External methods are present. Statements and methods are present. That means here, another note is you can also use various statements explicitly to read values from array. You can use for, you can use while, you can use do while, you can use for in, you can use for off. In JavaScript we can use this for, while, do while, for in, for off, like this. And here for, while, do while you will learn in statements concept. I will explain them. Here for in, for off we will see, means explicit iterators for array. Explicit iterators for array, we have a for in. It is nothing but it reads all properties of array. All properties of array. Properties of array means what? 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are all what? Properties. That means we simply write syntax like that. For var property in collection. That means in that collection, whatever properties are present, it can read. That means it can read one by one all the properties and it can return. So that is used for reading all the properties. You have another option. We can use for off. Actually, it reads all values of array. Values of array. So syntactically, just same concept. We have to use for. So for var value of collection, we have to use of operator. So in is used for returning property and off is for returning value. If you want to return both, then using for in, you have to implement a technique, because for in will read property, and if you know property, we can easily, if we know the properties, we can easily read the values, right? Because values are accessed with reference of property, na? Right? So you see here, these techniques are there. We have these techniques. Let's see. I want to read all these. Then we are simply writing for var property in sales. Sales is a collection. Document.write, I am printing property and a break. And you can see that it is going to read every property in sales. That means in this sales, it will not read values. It will read their property names. Their property names. So that means it is going to return all the properties and display the properties here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just change this from into off. Variable name, no need to change. Variable name, any name you can give. Then off will return all values. It is going to return all values. Traditionally, what we do, because it is returning values, we use the word as what? Value. That's a variable name. You can give any name, X, Y, Z, anything you can give. Right? What is difference is, so in is going to return all the properties, and off is going to return all values. Then how you will return both? Then you will use a technique here. First, in the square brace, I am using property. That means it is going to print all the properties. After that, I will use another expression. Here, sales is the array of property. Array of property means array of 0, array of 1, array of 2. That means now we will put a break. This is going to read both values and properties. That means you can read the properties and values from an array by using this technique. You can do that. So that is what actually I used in previous concept. What I done is I just used a special operator called type of. Type of is a operator which knows the data type of those properties. All are string. Right? By using type of operator, we can know its data type. That means what is the data type we can understand. Right? So this is an example. That is example for reading all the keys and values. Now here, I hope you understood. Reading can be done by using implicit methods or by using explicit methods. So explicit methods are these. These are not methods actually. These are statements. We can use for in or we can use for of. One more important is actually, so another note is JavaScript ES5 and higher version introduced array destructuring. So array destructuring, which is easy to read the elements from array, which already I showed you last session. So array destructuring, that is the new technique. I told you with the split function, split with the split function I told you. Array destructuring makes it easy to read. You don't need index numbers or you don't need the property names. Without property, without index, you can read. For example, see here, where details is an array. In this details array, we have one, we have TV, and we have true. And here we are having some array. So Delhi, and we have Hyderabad, like this. Now, what is the point is, I want to separate all these and individually use them. If I want to separate all these and individually use them, then I have to create 4 variables. In one variable, details of 0. In another variable, details of 1. In another variable, details of 2. Like that, we have to define. But now, what is the new technique? You declare in a square brace all the variables, that is ID, name, stock, and what? Cities. And you simply assign this array. That means assign the details array to that. In details array, at 0 index, what is present? It will be in ID. This already I told you while working with string. That is actually array destructuring. Now you don't need any property names. Document.write. I want to print the details of all the product. That means here I will just use ID as ID. And we have name as name. Name. And we have stock as what? Stock. And we have cities as what? Cities dot to string or join or anything you can use. So it is going to print all the details and show. We are accessing without using the properties. Right? We can access and we can use them. This is array destructuring concept. That means how we can destructure and define that. So this is another example. Syntactically like this. So where collection is equal to some values, some 10, 20, and 30 like this. And where A, B, and C is equal to what? Collection. I already told you if there is D, what will be stored inside it? Undefined. Last session we learned if there is no value, what it will store? Undefined. So now here in this context, A equal to 10, B equal to 20, and C equal to 30. That's the concept. That is destructuring the array. Now this is an example for array destructuring. Example for that. right? Now, once you know this, now we learn how to add elements into array, remove elements from the array, sorting the elements, and doing dynamic operation on array. That we'll see tomorrow, right? In tomorrow's session, we will continue. In tomorrow, we will learn some examples using arrays. We will see some real-time examples how to deal with arrays. Okay, tomorrow we'll see.